Hello, Dave here. This is a little intro to getting started with MongoDB. So my Mongo environment, I installed everything in dev MongoDB, just a directory on my drive, and it creates a bin directory with all the executables. Here's my executables, and the only one I added in here is this start mongo.bat, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. But basically, it's just starting up my MongoD. I have also off of this dev MongoDB, I have my Mongo data, and here's where all the data goes. And that's why I needed to start Mongo, because I put my data here as opposed to putting it into the default directory. But anyway, here's where my Mongo data is. And I also have a little sandbox here for some JavaScript files to work with. So let's see how this all works together. And in order to get rolling, step one is starting your MongoD, which is the database. And in Windows, you have to start it in a command prompt. So I'm going to run my start Mongo bat file. And you see that here's the actual line in my batch file, MongoD, and it's got this DB path in here pointing to that Mongo data directory, right? And that's this directory right here. So that's basically all I did was I created this batch file, so I already had to type this. Okay, so now we have a MongoD running, and notice that it's listening on port 27017, default port. And again, if I could have multiple instances running, but I would need different data directories, and I could choose different ports. I'm going to go ahead and use the default port 27017. So step one, start your MongoD session. Here it is, and it's running in a command prompt. Now I need another command prompt. And in this one, I'm going to go ahead and run the Mongo shell. And to run the Mongo shell, it's just Mongo. And again, I went ahead and put this directory here, this bin directory. So for me, it's d:\dev mongodb/bin. I put this in my path so that I could type these commands from anywhere and it'll find it. And here's that mongo.exe that I just executed here. Notice that it puts me into the Mongo shell. It shows me what version I'm running, which is 2.4.0, and it connects me to the test database. That's all very good. What databases do I have out there? Well, I could do show databases. And it shows me that I have a demo database. That's what we're going to play with. An import database. It's another one that I had played with previously. A local database and a test database. And test is what it uses as its default, and that's what we saw by connecting to test. So I'm going to go ahead and switch. So I just say use DemoDB, and now I'm using the DemoDB database. Then commands that I enter that generally start with DB, I'm going to do DB dot. Well, let's first, sorry about that. Let's see what collections we have in there. And I have this demo collection. Notice there's also the system one out there. But I have demo cow out there as my demo collection. And that's what I'm using. So I can say db.democow.count. Let's see how many documents we have. Ooh, we have 3 documents. And I just hit the up arrow, so I didn't have to type that again. But now I can do a find on there, and it shows me, here's those 3 documents. Ooh, they're all kind of messy and up together. And I just want to show you that there's a pretty method that just prints it out in a prettier format. So here's that pretty command I entered. Here's ID number 1. So here's my first document. Down here through key C, then here's my ID number 2. Here's my second document, right? And you'll notice that here's an array with the brackets for key Z contains an array. And then I have embedded key X, key Y, and key Y2 and key Q, just to show some embedded data And then here's some additional keys off to the side. And then here's an ID. Ooh, and this is this Mongo generated ID if you don't specify an ID. And we'll look at generating this in a second. I just wanted to show, okay, that's all kind of nice and cute, and this is playing around in the shell, but it can get pretty cumbersome actually entering everything in the shell. So the way we get around that is, and that's the purpose of this getting started, is showing that if I create, so now I'm on my third command prompt, and I guess if you're using Unix or Mac or something, it would be bash shells or whatever it is, but it would be pretty much the same, very similar coding here, but I can just pipe it from a directory. So I know that my files are out here, right? See this demo DB, and I got my demo dev Mongo sandbox. Let me put that up here so that I can still see it while I'm typing. And I can say d:/cd dev MongoDB and cd dev MongoDB and change directory dev Mongo sandbox. Now I'm pointing to this directory here, and you'll notice that I have some JS files out here. The beauty of this Mongo, that's my MongoD. Let me bring up our Mongo shell here. The beauty of this Mongo shell is that it's a JavaScript interpreter. So I can have these JS files and I can run them, but I can work on them in any old text editor. I'm using Notepad++. So as long as I'm out here, here's my start mongo.bat. It's just that simple little file, one-liner showing the path. Big whoop. Anyway, here's my Mongo create script for this demo. And let's just look at this code for a second, and then we'll go ahead and execute it. So I basically say use demo DB, like we saw before. Got to specify which database to use. Then I'm going to drop it so that I can recreate it again. This is just refresh it because this is my testing. Then I say go ahead and use my demo DB. And now I can use for loops to generate data. And here's those three different types of documents that we saw before. So if I zip back out here, there's the shell. If I zip back out here, I can say Mongo, right? Because that's the mongo.exe. And then I say pipe in from this file, my Mongo create.js. And it executed it. And notice, right? So here's those statements that I executed. Yahoo, big whoop-de-doo. But let's go ahead and create a few rows here. So I can bump that up to 1,000 and bump this guy up to 1,000 and bump this guy up to 1,000. Now, if I come back to the shell, right, and do my count, I only have 3 rows out there, or 3 rows. Sorry, I'm still old school, 3 documents. But now if I run this Mongo create, it created that. Let's go back to our shell and run our counts. Oh, now I have 2,000. Well, let's see what kind of rows we have out there. And I can do my find again. And notice it found all of those guys. Right? And it shows about the find returns a cursor. So in the shell, it does IT to iterate for more. And it'll return about 20 of them at a time. But I can also do a dot sort just showing some of the fun stuff here. And I can do underscore ID colon -1. So there's the descending sort. And let's limit this. And you can also do a limit. And I'm going to limit it to 3 documents. And here they are. There's our 3 documents at the other end of the sort. Okay, so that's all fine and good doing it from the shell. Yuck. But now I have Mongo Review over here where I could do some of those same things. So I'm doing the use demo database, show me a count of the rows out there, and then I'm just doing a plain old find down here. So let's bring that guy back up. And if I do Mongo Review, notice that, ooh, it's not very pretty, but it shows 2,000 documents, right? I started out connecting to test, but now I switched to my demo DB. There's my 2,000 documents. Okay, that's good. Well, let's go ahead and change this to .pretty and see what that does. I'll save that. Let's bring this guy back up here and run it again. Oh, now they look much prettier. And there's about 20 of them, right, out of that 2,000. So let's go ahead and close that down. And what I really want to show here is that this basic find command, this is the basic details of it. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at it in the documentation. And this is someplace you should spend some time. And it's docs.mongodb.org, right? And it even shows like a document here, name :mongo, type :db. Okay, and it shows on this find command that it's DB collection name, find, and then you can set a query. So that's our where clause for you old SQLers. And here's our projection, and that's the select statement, selecting which fields or key value pairs we wish to include. And that's referred to as projection. And if you do use a projection, the only one that is defaults to yes is the ID. Otherwise, and that's basically what's always includes the ID field, even if it's not explicitly stated in the projection parameter. So you would set it to 0 to exclude the ID field. Otherwise, you set them equal to 1. And I have an example of that over here. Hang with me. So here's where I set up the 2 variables. So I'm going to set up a query work variable here. And I have 2 different ones. One is this keyq.key2. And again, look at I'm using dotted notation here. Is equal to 46. And then I can, I'm going to skip the projection and get them all. So I'm just going to do this one here, right, where I'm not including, right? This one here includes the projection. But let's just go ahead with just the query now. So we're setting up the query, and I can use various fields. And we'll talk about a bit more of a complex one in a second. But let's just run this guy. So if I run that guy, notice that here it is. And look at this. Key 2 is equal to 46. Key Y2 is equal to 46. So that showed using this query work. Well, that's all well and good. Let's just look at a bit more complex of a query work statement. So now I'm saying key B is in, and I just wanted you to see this syntax here, because look at these squirrely brackets. They can drive you crazy. So I'm going to say key B is in, so it is one of these 2 values. That's kind of similar, right? So here's an array with brackets, and I gave it 2 values, and I hope I went high enough. You know what? I'm going to change this down because I think I was using higher numbers before. And this little comma here is really doing an and between this guy and this guy here, which is an OR. And notice the OR is an array of values that are ORed together. So it's going to resolve that OR and it with this query here. So just showing you a little bit of complexity. And let me pop this down to these lower numbers and hope we're okay. So we're going to say OR, and if the ID is less than or equal to 518, or and greater than or equal to 517, right? So that I should just pull those two, right? So even though we're inside of this little comma here is an and then here, right, that comma is part of this OR. And I know it's complex, but that was the whole idea, was to show a complex one, right? And here's an OR here, less than or equal to 528, greater than or equal to 527 for this ID. So we should have, right, 518 and 528, 2 rows when we select that. So I'll save that. Let's run it. And there we go. We have, what do we get here? We got 518 and 528. 518 and 528, which is less than or equal to 518, greater than or equal to 517, less than or equal to 528, greater than or equal to 527, and it has to be in these guys, so it's ANDed together. So, just to show, let's change this to 1727, right? And anyway, so this is a good way to learn how to do this. Let's bring up the right guy here and run it again, and look at that. So now we got 18 and 28, the same ones, because I forgot to save this. So let's click save, run it again, right? So it's 528, and now when I run it, ooh, now it's 517. All well and good. So now let's go ahead and also do the projection. With projection work, so now I'm going to select ID, key A, key C, and key B, and let's use both query work and projection work values in here. And it's just a lot easier than typing this whole rigmarole inside here. So let's save it. Let's run it. And now you see that I get the ID, key A, key B, and key C, as opposed to getting this key Q and key Z. So let's come out here, and I'm going to change this to key Q. Let's save that, see how it looks differently. And again, this is how you play around and get a handle on it. So let's run it. And I got key B and key C, no key Q. I don't think there's a key Q in these guys. I got B. Well, let's go back here. back to key A, save it, run it. Anyway, so this is a good way to learn it. Yeah, I got ID, A, B, and C. That's all I have. Right, here's our 7 and 17. So I come back here, I guess I can come back here and do the turn off the ID. Right, let me go ahead and save that. So now I should not get the ID up on top. And I just get A, B, and C without the ID. So the idea here is play around, get a handle on it, start messing around, because defining your rows and getting your query chops woodshedded are very important. And again, you can use your JavaScript for loops to generate all kinds of test data. And also notice that you can have 3 different types of schemas all together in the same collection, even though it does not make sense, right? Realistically, even though there should be some slight differences, generally they're not entirely different. And you could also either specify the actual ID value, or you leave that off and allow Mongo to generate the ID for you. The only rule is the ID always must be unique. You can never have a duplicate ID. This is Dave, DaveCoast.com. Thank you very much for watching.